We continue our reading in the Bushman's Guide, Profit Turned to Loss. In the country district of New South Wales, a man who had once been a jockey owned a large piece of land. The property was not particularly valuable, but the owner conceived an idea which might enable him to gain money by the subdivision and sale of his land. He had been fattening turkeys to sell at Christmas time and had also in his possession a quantity of alluvial gold. Before selling the turkeys, he mixed the gold in with the bran and pollard on which they were fed. The purchasers were astonished to find alluvial gold, in some cases up to half an ounce in weight, inside of the turkeys which they had killed for their Christmas celebrations. Naturally, they drew their own conclusions regarding the land where the turkeys had been feeding. They hastened to buy what they could of this property, which surely must be fabulous rich in this alluvial gold. The owner gained the money which he had coveted, but found that his gains were in reality far greater loss in a way he had not anticipated. He had not broken the law of the land, nor had he even advertised his property for sale. Verbally, he had not lied to anyone and seemed quite clear in the matter. But in intention and in effect, he had deceived the people who rushed to buy the land from him. In his own heart, he knew that he had taken their money by false pretenses, and his conscience gave him no rest. Conscience has been described as the shadow of God's judgment thrown on the soul. It is the witness of the one who desires truth in the inward parts, in the secret thought and motives as well as in all outward dealings. In this case, the uneasiness over the transaction became steadily worse and increased to a fever which no doctor can cure. As time went on, the agitation of spirit affected his mental balance, until at last the man who had so cleverly deceived others became an inmate of a mental hospital. Years later, an old friend called to see him and was greeted with a wild, insane exclamation. "Good day, you old scoundrel! You murdered a man and his wife and 5 children." Conversation was useless. The visitor was not even recognized. The reins of the man's mind had been dropped. Reason and memory had fled. How many human tragedies are the result of spiritual disorder? Something has been wrong morally and spiritually and has never been put right. Is there a remedy for such troubles of the mind and spirit? Yes, thank God there is a sovereign, infallible remedy. This is the good news which the gospel brings, and it cannot be found elsewhere in this world. But we must first admit that something has been wrong. If we will not be honest with ourselves and with God, we are like a patient hiding symptoms from a doctor. A cancer will not die because it is hidden or ignored. The first thing is to tell God about ourselves without attempting to hide anything. Then we have his promise that, in 1 John 1:9, if we confess our sin, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sin and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. If we confess, that is the key to it all. The man to whom we have referred hid the facts of his wrongdealing and failed to bring the trouble to the great physician. If he had only realized it, the very fact that he was troubled was a good sign rather than a bad one. Some have hardened themselves in wrongdoing until they no longer feel any pangs of conscience, and would gloat over the gaining of money by false pretenses. This man knew he was wrong, but did not take the first step. He did not confess his sin to God. Perhaps he did not know God's promises of mercy and pardon, and had no one to show him the way. He may never have read for himself the assurance that if a wrongdoer turns to God from his sin, he will have mercy upon him and will abundantly pardon. The cause of the trouble was allowed to remain when it might have been brought to light and removed. God does not require us to confess our sins to any human being. This is made clear in the New Testament, particularly in the Epistle to the Hebrews, where it is shown that the old priesthood was done away when Christ came and died for us and rose again and ascended to the throne of God, there to be our great high priest, to whom all may come. You may read this in Hebrews 4:14 through 16 and chapters 7, 8, and 9. But if we are sincere in our confessions to God, we will not be otherwise in our dealings with those around us. If we have wronged them, we will ask God for strength to go to them, tell them what happened, and do what we can to put everything right. We may not be able to think of everything, nor may we be able to rectify every detail that has been wrong. But if we bring our case to God, He will soon show us the right course to follow. If we confess our sin, the fact of it rather than all the details, then that sin will be at once removed from God's records. Yet, if there are special things to be confessed and put right with others, we will know it in our hearts, as in the case of the man mentioned when he defrauded others in the sale of his land. Let us remember also that knowledge brings responsibility, and every delay increases our guilt and makes action harder. It may be a big thing to take the right course, but it will be worthwhile 1,000 times over. It is the shortest cut to a life of freedom and happiness in the blessing of God. To God be the glory.